Yo, what's grounded everyone? It's your boy Johnny Gio and welcome back to GP. On today's video, I'm going to be discussing the first year of me being cocaine and alcohol free. I do want to make a video on all 4 years. However, putting that video together with all 4 years wouldn't be as good as separating each one. So look out for the second year, third year, and fourth year that I've been cocaine and alcohol free. So if you guys are new to the channel, I just want to give you guys a bit of information about myself. I was a binge alcohol and cocaine user. I would black out a lot and pretty much would go on a binge. And it didn't benefit anybody for real, but I do make this channel just to help people out if they're going through some stuff or they don't know how to stop drinking or they don't want to seek AA help or the 12-step program. I kind of came up with my own steps on how I've successfully kept away from alcohol and cocaine. So back to the point of this video. If you haven't seen the video on the Vernon Johnson's model of alcohol progression, I recommend you watch that video first. I will put that video on the description below. As I was learning the Vernon Johnson's model of alcohol use progression, I started realizing what category I fell on. And I noticed, based on what kind of person I was when I would drink alcohol or use cocaine, I fell under the harmful dependence and seeking the mood swing category. So keep in mind that everybody's different, and what I'm about to say in this video and the takeaways, and it all varies on what kind of drinker you were, and if you've been drinking for a long time, or if you're a heavy drinker, or if you're a blackout drinker like me. Just keep in mind, if you decide to stop drinking, please take precautious matters and just be considerate of maybe the things you might go through. You might have to be hospitalized if your situation is a little bit more severe than mine. Okay, so going back to the takeaways of the first year I was cocaine cocaine and alcohol free. All right guys, the first takeaway is, to start off with, I started missing my friends. I started really missing that nightlife feeling. I started missing, going out and spending time with my friends, bonding with them over a couple beers and stuff like that. Even though, sometimes I would black out and, do cocaine, there was those moments where I would be cool and chill and, we would have some good times. So missing the nightlife, as far as the adventure goes, or shit might pop off, and just kind of feeling like you were missing out on something because that was your belief of having fun. So definitely one takeaway is, you start to miss your friends, and you really have to fight through that, I guess, trigger. And if you do the second step, which is getting rid of your triggers, it's going to be tough, but for the most part, you will be able to refrain yourself from doing alcohol. The second takeaway from my first year being alcohol and cocaine free, I would say, is that I felt, and others would even tell me, that I was pretty boring, in the sense that I wasn't as loose or like as kind of relaxed as I would be. I was kind of more tensed up just because, I was really on the edge. Like, I didn't want to start drinking again. So that made me kind of, or started being uptight, and I didn't want to go out with my friends anymore, especially because everybody wants to go out to a bar or to a club and stuff like that. And I just didn't want to put myself in that situation, really, where I would relapse and start drinking again. My life was very routine, like it would be the exact same thing I would be doing Monday through Sunday. And even though it was very calm and chill, like, it just started getting like very routine like, and probably that's why people would say that I was boring and stuff like that. Also, I wasn't on the same vibration as others, like there were for the most part, people were loud and very happy, and even though I did feel happy, I wasn't like very like, oh, like, fuck yeah, party and shit like that. I was very on like a chill vibration, just kind of like, seeing things for what it is, and just on a different vibe, on a different mentality, just being happy, but not like that kind of happy. You get what I mean? So when I talk about the 4 steps, a part of self-care is kind of helps out with this type of situation, like when you're feeling bored and people are telling you you're boring and things start getting very routine. Like self-care plays a big role because you kind of take yourself out of that comfort zone and you start kind of putting yourself in situations or attacking stuff that are very sensitive to you, as far as like your childhood goes, or maybe you want to work on your body, or maybe spiritually you want to get closer to God, or whatever it is. So that kind of takes away from that um, repetitive cycle of feeling boring and stuff like that. So this is why I suggest and I implement, self-care on here as well. Moving on to the third takeaway of the first year being alcohol and cocaine free. And this one was kind of trippy just because it was really weird when I would go through this, and it was very frequent too. And I'm sure I actually heard this before from people that have stopped drinking and doing drugs and shit like that. The first couple of years this actually happens. But anyways, the third takeaway is that you start having these dreams or these nightmares that you relapse or you're drinking again. And in my situation, I started having dreams of blackouts, and these were dreams that of incidents that actually did happen. And in these dreams, or should I say nightmares, I was acting very uncharacteristic, and I was very not myself, being very belligerent. And these were nightmares because this is a side of me that I didn't want to see. And I don't know if it was my subconscious mind just bringing that to light, and you know, maybe a part of me just really, really didn't want to go there. And when I was in my dreams, I was there, and they felt really real. So if you drink a lot or you had blackouts and stuff like that, expect to have dreams of blacking out, or I mean relapsing, and them feeling very real, because I would wake up fucking sweating and just like, fuck that, I can't believe I just drank, and I'll be like, oh shit, like it was just a dream. So these dreams are very frequent. They didn't stop until probably the second year or so. But yeah, dreams are a trip, man. So that's the third takeaway. All right, so moving on to the fourth takeaway for the 1 year or the first year that I was alcohol and cocaine free, and that is that your relationship with friends or even with your significant other, they start to dry up. And this is in part because you're not that same person anymore. You are changing, and whether people say you're boring or you feel boring, and even though you do feel happy, you're just not on that same vibe as other people anymore. And you're really aware of just like what makes you happy. And even if you have to sacrifice a couple friendships for your own well-being, it is what it is. But to be honest, I've been lucky enough to have friends that support my decision, and some friendships did dry up, and they did end up, we did end up cutting ties. The most important friendships that I have now, I still have, and they still drink, they still do their things. And after being 4 years alcohol and cocaine free, I can kick it with them, go out to bars or clubs, even though I rarely do that, but I am able to do that and just chill with them, even if I have a cup of water in my hands, I'm enjoying the vibe with them, everything's cool. But don't do that in the first year, because I did relapse once. I would have been 5 years alcohol free, but I'm 4 because the first year I did relapse after almost being 1 year. But I'm gonna make a separate video on that, on my relapse. But yeah, that's the fourth takeaway. Relationships start to dry up. And if your friends are your true friends, they will support you. And even though you might not be kicking it with them as much or having a beer, I'm sure there's plenty of other things that you can do, whether that's sports or, playing a game of cards and stuff like that. So if they're real ones, they're going to be with you no matter what. Another thing I mentioned is relationships. And this is a trip because I'm gonna give an example. Let's say you have a relationship, and when you guys drink, the first couple of hours you guys are having a good time, but for some reason towards the end you guys are so messed up, and it gets to a point where it starts being, you started getting into a, what the fuck, fucking fly, bitch. Anyways, you start getting to a point where it's constant and you guys are fighting because you guys are drunk, whether it's because of jealousy or whether it's because of shit you bring up from the past, whatever it is. The relationship starts to dry up, and it's not because they don't have feelings for one another anymore, or even though they're not fighting anymore, it's just because they're growing apart. The person that's not drinking anymore doesn't find that fun anymore, and the person that does drink kind of feels like, shit, where's my drinking buddy? What happened to that person that was the life of the party? What happened to that person that was like, uh, all fun and games, even though we would fight? And then, some people are actually addicted to the drama, and they like a little bit of spiciness and, play fighting or fighting in general. So just because you stop drinking and, you guys don't argue and fight anymore, there's still a big possibility that you might, separate sides because you guys don't have that drunk or alcoholic, or I'm not trying to sound like that, but that's the only words that come to mind. But you guys get what I mean. You start to grow apart from each other, right? So that's the fourth takeaway. The fifth and last takeaway I want to inform you guys about is that when you are on your first year alcohol and whatever drug free, is that in my situation, I picked up weed. And this is why I don't say that I'm sober, because I have been smoking weed since I was like 17. I've stopped for plenty of times, but that particular year, I was microdosing like every 2 hours, or every 2 to 3 hours. I'll pack a bowl, smoke it. I stayed high. I wasn't like stoned, but I was under the influence of weed. And even though I was doing my steps, I did notice that I was pretty much high, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not super stoned, but I was, under the effects of weed. And just gotta be careful when you drop alcohol. You try not to pick something else up. Even though I was smoking weed while I was drinking, probably I drank for the first time when I was 12, did crystal meth when I was 11 and a half. That's another story. But I started smoking weed probably like my junior or senior year in high school, and I've been smoking weed since. I did stop 1 year, and that was the year I relapsed from alcohol. I stopped 1 full year, so weed was never really a thing where I was like, oh shit, if I don't stop smoking weed, I'm probably gonna die because, and shit like that. You know what I mean? So it wasn't that drastic, but I will also make another video as to why I stopped smoking weed now, and why I usually have times off of weed, because weed is a drug. Whether you say it's like natural and grows from the earth and woo woo shit like that, like, you know what I mean? Like, weed has its benefits, and it's studies have been shown, but there's a lot of reasons why I choose to pretty much not smoke weed at all anymore, or if I do, it's like on rare occasions, and it's like very lightweight. Like, I'm a super lightweight when I smoke weed. But that's exactly why I do not say I'm completely sober, just so I'm not like a hypocrite saying, preaching, to not drink and not do cocaine and shit like that. The reasons why I make these videos is because alcohol and cocaine impacted my life very negatively. Even though weed kind of sometimes does that, it's not to that extent. And I do have pretty much all the control over weed, rather than with alcohol and cocaine. I had no self-control. So just to recap on the takeaways of this video, being alcohol and cocaine free for myself, just keep in mind that for you, it might be something else. And there's other things you go through, but I think these are the biggest takeaways for my 1 year experience. Number one, you start missing your friends. Number two, you do start feeling and people do start telling you that you are boring. Number three, you start having dreams and nightmares and shit to trip. I'm pretty sure they eventually do go away. I haven't had one of those in a long time, so that's number three. Number four is that your relationships with your friends, and in most cases with your significant other, they dry up unless they're your real ones, unless they're real cool friends that they're with you through everything, no matter what. Like those shits will fucking dry the fuck up. And number five, be careful, because you might pick up another either addiction or another substance if you put down alcohol, whether that's cigarettes, weed, popping pills, other shit to kind of take away that or replace that feeling of drinking. So I hope this video helped, and just keep in mind during this whole 1 year process, I was doing my very own steps, which is obviously first step was realizing that you have an issue and changing that belief that alcohol isn't the only way you need to have fun, and figuring out your why. Why is the reason that you are going to stop drinking? And if your why is not strong enough, it is because your why doesn't mean really that much to you. Like if your why, for example, mine was that I wanted to be the father that I wish I had, and it was not a blackout cocaine binge user. So that reason, that why for me was so strong, it completely changed my belief in drinking, and I just put that shit down, along with number two, getting rid of my triggers. Yes, some friends you're gonna have to cut off, your plug you're gonna have to cut off, even social media you might have to get rid of that shit for a while. All that stuff, going ghost. Number three, which is self-care, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And number four, which is reprogramming your subconscious mind. This is big, changing your belief, changing the way you think, not just like on a addicted or alcoholic level, on changing the way you look at people, changing the way you look at yourself, changing the way you look at the whole world. And reprogramming your subconscious mind doesn't mean like you have to pray all the time and stuff like that. Even what you watch, keep in mind that you don't just eat through your food, you feed your soul through like the prayers you do, you feed your mind through the things you read, you feed your eyes through the things you watch, you feed your ears through the things you listen to. And if you're feeding yourself a bunch of garbage, what does that tell you? And that's how you reprogram your subconscious mind. So I hope this video helped. 5 takeaways from 1 year being alcohol and cocaine free. If you guys like, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, share the videos, all that good stuff. Peace out.